Chris Gabehart is out as Denny Hamlin's crew chief for 2025. Martin Truex Jr. says that he's still riding the Daytona 500, but not with 2311 Racing. Plus, it sounds like General Motors is headed to Formula One. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. Yeah, NASCAR news just literally will not slow down at this point. We had NASCAR award ceremony media day on Friday. Got some information that came out of that. We also think that maybe Rick Ware Racing spoiled their own driver announcement for 2025. You can see here from somebody on Reddit posted a screen grab of their website, and it says that they're a one-car operation with Corey LaJoie as the driver. So we'll wait and see if that actually gets confirmed. But let's get into the big news of the day, and that is Chris Gabehart is out as Denny Hamlin's crew chief. They've been together since the 2019 season, full-time. They've recorded 22 wins, 90 top fives, 120 top tens in that period. They made the championship 3 times, but ultimately could not get the job done together and hoist that championship trophy at the end of the day in Homestead and then Phoenix eventually from there. For Gabehart, he will move into the competition director role at Joe Gibbs Racing, which actually makes some sense because I do believe that he is the best crew chief they have over there at Joe Gibbs Racing, and that company as a whole struggled mightily in the second half of the year, and I think it flew under the radar for the most part because Joe Gibbs Racing hasn't won a NASCAR Cup Series race since June when Christopher Bell won at New Hampshire. That was race 18 of the season, meaning they went through the entire second half of the season without winning a race. So like they're the Dallas Cowboys or, insert the other really bad teams that you would like to cheer against in there. For Gabehart and Joe Gibbs Racing, that's not a good look. But I do believe Gabehart overseeing the entire operation could really help lift the performance of that team. Who will Denny Hamlin's crew chief be in 2025? It will be Chris Gale. He moves over from the 54 car of Ty Gibbs and now will be the crew chief for Denny Hamlin. Here's the thing. Nobody consulted Denny Hamlin on this before the decision was made. Hamlin said during media day on Friday that he was called into Joe Gibbs Racing for a 6 p.m. meeting and was told about the changes then. Said that he's never worked with Chris Gale before, doesn't really know Chris Gale, but said he's motivated to try to go get things done. On the Ty Gibbs side of things, because he lost his crew chief, Ty said, listen, you could probably say that Chris Gale and I maybe plateaued. And he went on to say that, his grandfather won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. So maybe that's, the type of change that they need over at Gibbs. It was a pretty diplomatic answer, pretty decent answer too from Ty Gibbs. But it's going to be a big change. Chris Gale has been in the NASCAR Cup Series since 2017 when he joined with Eric Jones in 214 races as a NASCAR Cup Series crew chief. He has 2 wins, 43 top fives, and 81 top tens in that time period. With Ty Gibbs, the last 2 seasons, they of course don't have any wins, but he has 12 top fives and I believe 22 top tens on top of that. So they've been somewhat consistent, but definitely feels like they've underperformed in a sense. Denny Hamlin, of course, isn't getting any younger, and the end of his career is very much in sight for him, and he wants to win a championship desperately, and I'm not sure Chris Gale's that guy, but obviously somebody over at Joe Gibbs Racing, thinks that he might be. Dave Alpern talked to SiriusXM NASCAR on Friday and said that when they sat down and looked at it, they think that Chris Gale is the closest thing to Chris Gabehart, and they think that he and Denny will have a formidable relationship together. Okay, I can get behind that. Obviously, there's a lot of thought that went into this. You don't make a decision like this rashly and, a knee-jerk reaction. For Hamlin, I understand why he might be confused, upset, a little bewildered by the whole thing. Maybe it, knocked him a bit off his rocker because he compared he and Gabehart breaking up to like Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and now you got to go out there and prove yourself with somebody else. Maybe I missed the 6 championships he and Gabehart won together, but I understand what he's saying. You won a lot of races with one guy, now you got to go try to do it with another guy and prove that it wasn't necessarily Chris Gabehart. But big change for the 11 car next season. FedEx isn't coming back. Chris Gabehart's not coming back. Now we'll have to wait and see just how Denny Hamlin performs. Martin Truex decided to get out of the deer blind and came down to Charlotte for NASCAR award ceremony media day on Friday. And he talked about a number of different things. And when asked about his plans to race the 2025 Daytona 500 and if that would be with 2311 Racing, he said no, but he was told that Joe Gibbs Racing is going to do it somehow. So we'll see. So the plan originally was supposed to have 2311 Racing field Martin Truex Jr. in the Daytona 500 with obviously a car supplied by Joe Gibbs Racing. They just can't enter it because they've already reached their 4-car maximum over at JGR. But now with 2311 Racing, very much having to face the reality of racing full-time in 2025 with 3 open cars, Adding a fourth one to the Daytona 500, a race that notoriously tears up a lot of race cars, isn't really the best financial decision, especially at a time where you're going into a season without that guaranteed payout that you get with a charter. So for Denny Hamlin, 2311 Racing, it makes sense to not have Martin Truex Jr., added in for that fourth car. Yeah, the car would come from Joe Gibbs Racing, but it's the added expense, it's the added stress of having that fourth car. Doesn't really make that much sense. Who could it be with now? Well, he says that Joe Gibbs Racing is going to do it somehow. Obviously, Legacy Motor Club is the only other team in the Cup Series that fields Toyotas. They famously not wanted to pay for the alliance with Joe Gibbs Racing because I guess they looked at what happened to Furniture Row and Levine and they were like, no. We're not having the Grim Reaper show up at our door. So we're going to do this on our own. You can make an argument that maybe they should just pay for it because, but for Martin, I'm not sure. Yeah, they could field it. Or are we going to see a one-off, a new team debut? Is it going to be Sam Hunt Racing fielding a car in the Daytona 500 for Martin Truex Jr. just with a car prepared from Joe Gibbs Racing? Could be. Are they going to, team up with a team like MBM and, have them enter the car, but it's a Joe Gibbs Racing car, like when Stewart-Haas Racing would run Cole Custer in a Rick Ware car, but we knew it was a Stewart-Haas Racing car. Or, back when Spire wasn't Spire yet, and they feel like Jamie McMurray. We knew those cars didn't necessarily come from Spire. They came from a better organization. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But it makes a lot of sense that they're not going to do that. I have seen some people be like, well, they'll just list Ty Gibbs as the owner for it, but it'll be a JGR car. It's not how it works. You can't just list somebody and then have the car come from that organization per se. Like, it's going to have to be from a team. I know a lot of people see names, you'll see like who's listed as the owner for the car, and they're like, well, that means that it's not all from the same team. Yeah, it is. It's just not owned by the same person, but it's under the umbrella. So I understand why some people probably get wrapped up in that. But for Truex, at least he's going to be in the Daytona 500. I think that's a good thing. And when you sit back and look at it, well, we know MBM is going to enter the Daytona 500. We know Truex is going to enter the Daytona 500. So there's 2 open cars at least. Throw in the fact that you're going to have, 4 to 6 with, with 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports in there. So let's say that we're down to 30 charters because we're not sure what's going at the Stewart-Haas Racing charters. Let's just assume that they're going to 2311 Racing, Front Row Motorsports. They get hung up. Now, if we have essentially 6 open spots there for those 6 charters, now missing, plus the other 4 open spots, that leaves us with 10. Currently, we're up to 8 open cars for the Daytona 500. Still expect more entries to become available. We do know that Spire is going to, well, we don't officially know this yet, but it is expected that Spire is going to field a 4th car in select races in 2025. Are they going to enter the Daytona 500? If so, there's another one that you can throw in there. BJ McLeod, is he going to bring the 78 out? If that happens, okay, we're at 40 cars now. Jimmy Johnson going to enter? Hey, we're at 41. We're now into the bump zone. Is Call going to enter a 3rd car? We don't know. RCR could enter a 3rd car as well. So there's a lot of variables that can go into this, and that entry list could fill up very fast and make for a very interesting Daytona 500 qualifying and duels. Have to see how that all plays out. Turns out the easiest way to get into Formula One is to not have Michael Andretti involved, or at the very least, contact the U.S. Department of Justice and have them, open an investigation into why your bid was denied, because it appears now that General Motors will get a bid and entry into Formula One as the 11th team. You heard me correctly, an 11th team, not buying a team, literally starting up an entire new team, expanding the grid by 2 more cars, which is a welcome addition to Formula One. So if you remember back, Michael Andretti has been pushing super hard over the last 2 years or so to get into Formula One. The FIA accepted their bid and was like, hey, this is the most qualified bid. Formula One said, yeah, pound salt. I was going to flip out the camera. We're not doing that. This is a family show. Not necessarily, but, people think it's an obscene gesture. I don't think it is. Whatever, I'm not doing it. So they didn't want Michael Andretti to get in. Well, now Dan Towers owns Andretti Global, not Michael Andretti anymore. He is a very small partner, and Dan Towers is a very big partner in it. Not stature-wise, he's a normal height guy, but he owns a lot of Andretti Global. He has a lot of money. He has a lot of high-profile partners who also have very deep pockets. They would like to get into Formula One. General Motors would like to get into Formula One with their Cadillac brand. And now it all seems like it's going to happen because news around the paddock in Las Vegas is that we are very close to getting a formal announcement that General Motors will be added in as that 11th team. Don't necessarily have an exact timeline on it yet, but Dan Towers is in Las Vegas this weekend, scoping out things, talking to people, seeing, if this is going to happen. Based on the Athletic article from Luke Smith, it sounds like General Motors will take over the bid. They'll pay the anti-dilution fee, and then they will enter the sport in possibly 2026, as early as 2026, and use customer engines for the first 2 years, 26 and 27, before having their own power unit in 2028 and being a full works team. That is awesome if it happens. I think we're all very much on board with that. Yeah, it sucks that Michael isn't going to really get to, reap the benefits of all of his hard work over the last 2 years and all of his grandstanding and forcing people to talk to him. But it's cool to see the brand of Cadillac into the sport. It's cool to see General Motors want to spend money. Anytime manufacturers want to spend money on motorsports, I am 100% in on that, because that's the only way that motorsports keeps going at the level that we currently enjoy it at. So having General Motors come in is great. Now, if I was General Motors, though, I would go back to Formula One and be like, you guys called us a novice constructor. And that is a slap in the face, because Alpine is in your series. And if you're going to call us a novice constructor, what the heck does that make them? Yeah, I know they won world championships back with Fernando Alonso in 2005 and 2006 when it was the old Renault Works team. But let's be honest here. That team is no good at all. They're constantly, flirting with the idea if they're going to sell or not. They're not really that committed. They're not even making their own power units now going forward. But yeah, Cadillac and General Motors are a novice constructor. Get out of here with that. Ultimately, I'm happy about this because hopefully it helps increase and make the ladder system for Americans to go up, to be able to climb that ladder easier without having to deal with the bias that is, the European ladder when they have to go over there. So ultimately, I think this is really good. Now we just have to wait on a formal announcement before it actually happens. But hey, if we're going to get more black and gold livery race cars, I'm all for it, because it's an absolutely fantastic combination of colors. So let me know in the comments what you think about Chris Gabehart out as Denny Hamlin's crew chief, Martin Truex Jr. not racing for 2311 Racing at the Daytona 500, but for somebody. Plus, Cadillac headed to Formula One. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.